Al Angelo from A Plus Racing. We're back on Lolita. All right. So I got Lolita here in the shop. To recap our last video, I introduced you to Lolita, that we bought her as a not running very well car, and we're going to try to get her running a little better, and then I'm just going to sell it. So the original owner had tampered with the fuel system. The car starts and then dies sometimes. It runs really bad. And so as I showed you in the last video, so my first step, anytime I think it's a fuel issue, which I think this vehicle has a fuel problem, is I put a fuel pressure tester on it. So look over my shoulder here and I'll show you what we got. So I've got a fuel pressure gauge right here, tapped in here. And basically what this is doing, it's just showing me the fuel pressure. And I have it tapped into the feed line. Now there are two fuel lines here. One of them is a feed line and the other one is the return. So the way I tell which one is which is I follow the line up, and it goes to this side of the rail is a feed. After the fuel pressure regulator valve, which is right here, there'll be a line, and that's this one, and that's the return to the gas tank. So this feeds it pressure up to 100 pounds. The fuel pressure regulator valve drops it down to about 45 pounds. So whatever it doesn't need, it sends back the return line. So at an idle, we're going to send a lot of fuel back on the return line. At wide open throttle, we're not going to send as much. So this car needs to run about 45 pounds of fuel pressure in order to run. So if I have very low fuel pressure, then I could have issues with the fuel pump or the fuel filter or something like that. So that's what I'm looking for. So let's go ahead and we're going to start the vehicle up and see if it runs, and then we'll go from there. All right. So okay. So let's go. So here we go. Go ahead and fire it up. All right. So I saw 40 pounds. And so it tells me that's enough fuel pressure. I mean, 45 is ideal, but it'll run fine with 40. What I also like seeing is, if you notice that we're down here at about 33 pounds of fuel pressure, that tells me the system is holding pressure. So like the injectors aren't leaking, the fuel pressure regulator valve isn't leaking fuel back to the gas tank, and also the check valve in the fuel pump is holding pressure in the rail. So right now my pressure is still in the rail at least 33 pounds. Now, if you've got one of those Miatas where it's hard to start in the morning, but then the rest of the day it seems to start fine, then you could be bleeding off the pressure. So what happens in that case is, like, let's say this pressure started slowly bleeding off over the course of an hour or so, and it ends up being zero. When I come out the next time to start the car, usually in the morning, what ends up happening is that I have to build all this pressure up before the car will start. So the computer is designed to turn the fuel pump on for about 3 seconds anytime I turn the key on and crank it. But 3 seconds might only get me 15, maybe 20 pounds of fuel pressure. It might not be enough. So when I have a car that's hard to start in the morning, what I do is I cycle the key off and on several times. That way it gives me 3 seconds of fuel pressure each time I cycle it off and on. And then I try to start it. And if it immediately starts, then that tells me that I'm bleeding off my fuel pressure and that I had to build it all up to the point where it would start. So this car doesn't have that problem. This car seems to have okay fuel pressure. But I know I can tell by that the way that this thing runs that it's got a fuel issue. So I'm going to dig deeper into it. Maybe I might even go back there and check that fuel pump to see what the person did to it, even though it looks like it's making the right. I want to know, maybe something is bad in the gas. I'm suspecting that maybe if it has rust in the tank, it sat for a while, you know, something like that. Maybe some rust formed in there, and then we got rust in the fuel filter, and then maybe even eventually we ended up with rust out here. You can see it runs, but it shakes really bad, and then it dies. It might be that we're only working off of maybe 1 or 2 injectors that are working, and the other ones might be clogged. It's just, I just have a gut feeling on this. So I'm going to start looking more into the fuel system to see that it is operating in good condition, and especially that those injectors are squirting fuel. All right. Okay. That's where I'm at next. So we're going to go ahead and dig a little deeper into this fuel system, and I'll see you at the racetrack. Bye now.